Guys, we need to talk. Like, seriously, grab yourselves a seat. We need to have a heart-to-heart about the so-called disturbing movie Iceberg. Yeah, you know, that thing. The visual guide that every edgelord on TikTok uses when they want to make themselves feel like they've stared into the abyss. Now, full disclosure, I like the concept of the disturbing movie Iceberg. It's a fun, twisted little map of human depravity. But the execution, this thing fails at its first, most basic premise. So let me just say this out loud for the record. Most of these movies are not disturbing. They're just gross. Shocking? Yes. Upsetting? Roger that. But disturbing, like haunting your dreams, can't get it out of your head, can't shake it level of disturbing? Not even close. So here's what we're going to do. Stick around, and I am going to go tier by tier by tier all the way to the bottom and break down how many of these actually deserve their spot. And spoiler alert, it's not as many as you would like to think. Before we get too deep into this thing, let me address some of the weird tension I can feel coming from some of you already. You're getting all defensive. I can feel it. You're hovering over that comment button, ready to scream at me on the internet. Oh, you just don't get it, bro. So let's just define a few things right off the bat, just so we're all on the same page. That way we can keep this conversation grounded. First off, yes, I acknowledge this is all subjective. This is all just my opinion. At the end of the day, I'm just going to lay out some rules here, and then I'm going to try and persuade you over to my way of thinking. Rule number one, and this is the most important one. This is the thesis, the premise of this entire video. Disgusting is not the same thing as disturbing. Yes, of course they can overlap. Many disturbing movies have tons of blood, tons of violence, vomit, necrophilia, God forbid, some combination of all of the above. But grossing someone out is not the same thing as unsettling them. A disturbing movie should linger. It should follow you around like a bad smell you can't get out of your head. I'm talking about existential dread, psychological rot, that sticky feeling of, I think I need a shower, and then probably a priest. If a film doesn't do that, if it doesn't leave even a faint scar, it does not belong on this list. Are we clear on the rules now? We're all on the same page? Then let's jump into this actual iceberg and see what we got. Yes. The kiddie pool of the iceberg, the slasher starter pack, the hot topic discount bin. We've got Friday the 13th, Child's Play, Scream, Nightmare on Elm Street. These are fun movies. These are Halloween TV movies. They're iconic, sure, but disturbing? And not even 1%. These films are the cinematic equivalent of a haunted hayride. You're going to scream a little bit. You're going to laugh a little bit. You might get a little fake blood on your shoe, but you're not going home traumatized. Then we get into The Conjuring, Insidious, The Ring, Annabelle, The Grudge. Are they creepy? Yes. I'm still not comfortable watching The Ring or The Grudge in a fully dark room. But for the most part, these are PG-13 date night movies with a little bit of spookiness sprinkled on the top. I'll be generous and give each of these half a point for atmospheric dread, but that's as far as I'm willing to go. Which brings us to tier 2. Okay, this is where it should have started. At least some of the movies on this tier punch back a little bit. We're talking about Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Hills Have Eyes, Saw, Tusk, Hostel, Midsommar, House of a Thousand Corpses. Now, not all of these are flawless, but they do, each in their own way, tend to rattle regular people. You watch Saw, you never trust a public bathroom again. You watch Hostel, you cancel your post-college European hitchhiking trip. And then Midsommar, like, now I can't even trust smiling people in full daylight with crowns made out of flowers. What kind of world are we living in when you can't trust that? This tier is basically what normies consider to be the worst of the worst. They're completely wrong about that, but to them, some of the titles on this tier are the furthest they're ever going to go. And at the end of the day, you know, that's actually valid. Their soul is probably a little more intact than mine is after watching some of the stuff a little further down. Also, going by the literal definition of an iceberg tiered list, the top level should always be mainstream, widely accessible stuff that most normal people have either watched or at least heard of. And with that, we sink down to tier 3. This, boys and girls, is where the real trauma begins. We're dealing with Salo, Martyrs, Pink Flamingos, Cannibal Holocaust, The Human Centipede 2, Suicide Club, and a Serbian film. Yeah, that's right, a Serbian film. The most notorious of all disturbing movies is literally on the tier that's the first one underwater. I don't want to get off on too big of a tangent here, but please make this make sense. These rankings at this point start to be very inconsistent. I'll give you a great example. Tier 3, we've got the aforementioned Serbian film, and we also have The House That Jack Built. The House That Jack Built, great film. Disturbing, certain elements of it are. I don't mind it being on this list. My question is, why is it on the same tier, standing shoulder to shoulder with a Serbian film? It's completely nonsensical. Please, someone in the comments, please explain this to me. Did I watch The House That Jack Built wrong? Did I miss some major plot point that really would have completely ruined my day? I just don't get it. And we are dangerously close to this rant taking up the rest of this video, so I'm going to stop that now, cut myself off, and we're going to get back into our regularly scheduled program. All of these movies deserve a spot on the iceberg. I'm not disputing any of them. I'm only a little skeptical about how they're being ranked. Having said that, let's go on to the next level, which is tier 4. All right, this is where things start to unravel, and I mean pretty quickly. We are now submerged waist deep in what I can only describe as vomit fetish pornography. I'm talking about titles like Slow Torture Puke Chamber, Slaughtered Vomit Dolls, and Regurgitated Sacrifice. These are some pretty wild movie titles, and they would make great death metal albums. But if we're being honest with each other, this is not horror. This is someone's very specific kink disguising itself as underground cinema. And look, I am not here to kink shame, all right? Whatever you got to do to make the glaze, that's your business. But you don't get to pretend that your puke and choke homemade snuff art is some revolutionary commentary on morality. This is also the tier where the list pretty much completely gives up on the concept of storytelling, character development, a structure. This is essentially, hey, let's vomit on each other and then get naked and then fuck and then probably throw up again. Once again, if that's your thing, if that's what gets you going, I have no problem with that, but don't act like you're going to trick me into watching that shit. What remains on this tier: August Underground, Nekromantik, Guinea Pig, Philosophy of a Knife. These all walk the line between disturbing and just psychologically exhausting. So not every entry on this tier deserves deletion, but some of them are obviously just trying to win a gross out contest and are not interested in disturbing your psyche. Tier 5. All right, now we are deep in the guts of this awfulness. We've got Woman's Flesh, My Red Guts, The Taming of Rebecca, Tumbling Doll of Flesh, and on and on and on. Are you picking up on the pattern? Yeah, it's essentially, we duct taped a woman to a bed, torture fucked her for 90 minutes, and filmed the whole thing on some shaky ass handycam from like 1995. Let's be real. All of this is just torture porn. This isn't allegory. This isn't critique. This isn't experimental cinema. It's just sexual violence that you have thinly veiled as a horror movie. The most disturbing part about this tier isn't the gore. It's the fact that people are still trying to pass this stuff off as artistic expression. This is the point where the iceberg completely collapses. From this point forward, the list really stops ranking movies based on psychological impact, and it starts grouping them almost purely by genre. You could make the case that this trend actually started in tier 4 with the vomit stuff, and then continued into tier 5 with the torture porn. But the reality is that both of those tiers at least had a couple of movies that sort of stood out as not fitting into those genres. But from here on out, we're just completely taking that off the table. We're not even pretending anymore that this is an iceberg. Levels 6, 7, and 8 are purely ranked based on what genre they fall into. So without further ado, tier 6. This tier takes us in a totally different direction. We have Faces of Death, Banned from Television, Mondo Kane, Africa Addio, and a bunch of real death documentaries that are just desperate attempts to shock you. These are all essentially just snuff mixtapes, but they have a veil of legitimacy because there's a narrator that talks through the entire film. Are they disturbing? Absolutely. But are they movies in the sense that we've been using the word? There's no narrative. There's no arc. This is just trauma stacking. And I would really suggest that while these are disturbing movies, they kind of should be on their own separate list. Tiers 7 and 8. What we've got here at the bottom of the iceberg really is just a recycling bin of all of the more garbagey genres that we've been discussing in the higher tiers. We've got more fetish films. We've got more shock tapes. And what we really have the most of is just a desperate flailing for underground cred. By this point, this list is really just some sketchy guy in an overcoat in an alley being like, "Psst, hey kid, hey, come here. Yeah, I found this VHS tape on the dark web. It's basically a bunch of random snuff films. People say it's haunted. Here, you take it. Okay, edgelord. Fine, you win. You're the most extreme. Congratulations. Good job, Greg." It turns out that, yeah, I'm fresh out of participation ribbons, but there's a little golf clap for you. Now fuck off. So where are we at here at the end? In total, there are roughly 90 movies on this iceberg, give or take. And honestly, only a small fraction deserve to legitimately be there. Based on the rules that we agreed to earlier in this video, you know, something that sticks with you, something that damages you, something that changes you. I think that the idea of this iceberg is great, but I'm just saying that I think we need someone to revise it. Not only for the films that don't deserve to be there, but also for the ones who weren't included because they were released after this document was published. As for the ones that do deserve their spot, these movies are not fun. For most people, they're not meant to be enjoyed. They're meant to be endured, they're meant to be processed, and they're meant to be survived. They're kind of like challenges or cinematic dares. And they exist to be a potent reminder that movies can be much more than just simple entertainment. So at this point, we're wrapping this video up, and I want to hear from you. What movie is at the bottom of your personal iceberg? What is the disturbing movie that got inside your head and tried to ruin your life? Let me know down in the comments. I just want to say thanks to all you guys for taking this deep dive into hell with me. Stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video.